Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, good evening all. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting for May 17th, 2021, which of course is being held via webinar again. Before we get started, I have my housekeeping items to read through, so bear with me for a moment on that. This meeting is being recorded by Westford Cat. Now, we respectfully ask that everyone mute their computer microphones and phones when they're not in use to avoid unnecessary noise during the meeting. This is an open meeting, so for all the panelists that have access to the chat panel, I would like to remind you to not use that function to discuss any of the content of the meeting, but to ask a question or any technical issues with the video conferencing platform, and please direct them to the organizers. All votes will be done by roll call. Again, all attendees are muted upon arrival. If an attendee wishes to contribute a question or comment, they may virtually raise their hand via the platform's control panel, and the chair or staff will recognize and unmute the participant where they can voice their concerns, similar to approaching the microphone at a live meeting. Or individuals may submit questions and comments to the chair and staff by utilizing the questions function. These will be compiled and included into the hearing at the appropriate time. And due to limitations of the platform, attendees that are accessing the meeting via the telephone number at the bottom of the agenda will only be able to listen to the proceedings and will not be able to contribute. Please access the video conference via the link on the agenda, even if you don't have a webcam to participate. So we've got all the planning board members here tonight. Jeff Morissette and Matt Salem from staff, and welcome Sierra Pelletier. So we'll go to, I'll start with open forum. I'll go to staff for open forum.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, I just wanted to introduce Sierra Pelletier. She's our new assistant planner. She just started about a week ago, so feel free to welcome her. And I don't know, she came back after the first week, so that's a good start. And then I don't know, Sierra, if you want to tell them a few words about yourself or your background.
I did start exactly a week ago today. So yes, did make it to the second week. Before this, I was the assistant planner in Wilmington. And then before that, I was in school doing the degree for for this field. So I guess that's about all I'll say.
Great, welcome.
Thanks.
All right, anything else from staff?
No, Mr. Chair.
Anything from the board for open forum?
Yeah, I have two items. Hey, we'll be discussing this later, but regarding the drive-through restaurant overlay district article, two items. One, I urge everybody who has not participated in the survey to please go to the website. You can get to that from a link on the front page of the town website. As of just a few minutes ago, we've now had over 1,530 survey responses, which is in just the last 11 days. So my goal is to beat the number of voters that participated in the recent town election, and we're getting close. So I want to thank everybody, but keep up the good work. And again, if you have not participated, I urge everyone to do that. Secondly, we're going to have the second information forum coming up a week from this Wednesday on the 26th of May at 7 p.m. And there will be a link for that webinar meeting coming up shortly, I hope, on the calendar, so everybody can participate again. We're going to do a quick rundown of some of the topics we did in the last meeting, but I'm hoping to work with the EDC membership, and we hope to present more information on some of the economics and some of the business-related topics and branch into some different areas for that information briefing. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Anything else from the board for open forum? Anything from the audience, Matt?
I do not see anything, Mr. Chair.
Great. All right. So we'll move on to our first item. It's a public hearing item PB 2102. It's a subdivision application for 0 and 37 Carlisle Road. The applicant has requested postponement without discussion to the June 7th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to postpone the discussion to June 7th?
I make a motion that we continue the public hearing for PB 2102 for the special permit for the OSRD definitive subdivision, as well as the stormwater management permit until June 7th.
Starting at 7:30
Starting at 7:30. Thank you.
via Zoom.
Second.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of continuing PB 2102, say aye. Mike? I think you said, yeah, you're on mute, I think.
Aye, sorry, aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I say aye. Now, Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye. So, all right, that was quick. All right, second item is a new public hearing item, PB 2117, special permit for a sign at 179 Littleton Road. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice?
Moved.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor of waiving the reading, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. All right, is there a motion then to open the public hearing for PB 2117?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye. So Jeff, you want to start with the applicant here?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, great. All right, we'll go to the applicant. Is that you, Mr. Martin?
Good evening. My name is not Mr. Martin. In fact, it's Peter March, New Hampshire Signs, 66 Gold Ledge Avenue, Auburn, New Hampshire. Mr. Martin couldn't be here tonight.
Okay.
So I'm the one talking through the application. So we're applying for a special permit for a sign package for the gas station at 179 Littleton Road, Westford. The site is in the Commercial Highway District and Minot's Corner Overlay District. The site is currently Gulf, although it the branding was not completed prior to the purchase by the Hafner's organization. So consequently, there's no branding on the actual canopy. We're applying for 2 sets of Hafner's channel letters and 1 donkey on a colored fascia, as shown on the next plan. These replace the 4 Gulf signs approved on February 19th, 2020. The Gulf signs were never installed. We also want to reface a portion of the existing Gulf ground sign with Hafner's faces of the same size. And we also wish to reface the building sign with a Hafner's face of the same size. Building sign. The site, as I said, has been subject to several prior planning board approvals. February 19th, 2020, related to the reconstruction of the canopy. On April 6th, the board permitted the ID sign with electronic price changes and the canopy. The board voted 5-0 to grant a sign special permit for the replacement of an existing pole sign and an existing canopy signage, with the conditions that only the portion of the canopy fascia reading Gulf shall be illuminated and all LED lights shall be dimmed to the satisfaction of the building commissioner. The proposed canopy signage that we're proposing represents 1 fewer sign. Gulf requested 4, we're requesting 3, and a reduction in area of around 8 square feet. So the total Gulf proposal was for 54 square feet, and we are asking for 46.3 square feet. The ID sign faces are the same size as the previous one, and the building sign is just a reface of an existing sign. So we think that the signs meet the criteria 9.3 in that they are well designed, promote the economic health of the site and thus the town by allowing this brand to effectively identify itself, maintain and enhance the built environment and the character of the town. Specifically, as to the social, economic, community needs which are served by the proposal, this allows the brand to identify itself effectively and also more modestly than the golf proposal, in that the number of signs is reduced and also the square footage is reduced. Traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading, this clearly identifies the site and improves traffic safety by allowing motorists adequate notice of the site. Adequacy of utilities and other public services. This proposal has no incremental effect on utilities or other public services. Neighborhood character and social structures. This proposal blends well with other sites in the area, notably the adjacent Mobile and Cumberland Farm sites, and is effective without being excessive. There are no incremental effects on the natural environment as a result of this proposal. Potential fiscal impact. This continues the effective economic use of the property, ensures that the tax-based economic activity and employment continue on this site. As far as section 5.3, signs will be consistent with the character and use of the area and with the zoning district in which it is erected. The sign package is in keeping with neighborhood properties, especially the two adjacent gas stations, Cumberland Farms and Mobile, each of which have canopy signage, ID signs, and building signage. The signs will not have a negative effect on traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. Visibility is key to any gas station. A gas station is unique in that it caters to many short-term customers, people that drive onto the site, spend a few minutes filling with gas, and then leave again. For some, price is a motivating factor. In other cases, brand is a key. Signage and lighting are key to the success of this brand, as they are to all brands. Internally illuminated signs are significantly more effective and visible than externally illuminated signs, and these signs effectively aid the identification and traffic flow onto the site. The signs will be appropriate in scale and proportion to buildings in the area and the general surroundings. We believe they're attractively designed and located. They provide continuity with other signs in the area. The colors, materials, and illumination of the proposed signs are restrained, and they will not unduly compete for attention with any other signs in the area. The Happiness brand is well known to the residents of the Merrimack Valley, especially Lawrence, Lowell, and surrounding communities. The brand is being expanded, and this is an element of the expansion. The signs we're proposing, smaller and less numerous than the Gulf signs originally approved, of a similar scale to both Cumberland Farms and Mobile. Each of those sites have colored fascias, canopy signage, and building and ID signs. The building and ID signs are the same size as the previous signage and represent only color and/or verbiage changes. As I've said, the canopy fascia is attractive and modest, reducing the number of signs previously approved, and the area reduces by 8 square feet.
All right, great, thank you. Yeah, Matt, can you leave the pictures up of the proposed? Yeah, there you go. All right, so I'll go to Jeff. Do you have any staff comments before we go to the board?
Oh, Mr. Chair.
All right, cool. We'll go to the board to see if anybody has any comments or questions. I'll start with Mike.
Well, it appears to me that it's basically what was there, just changing the branding. I like the old-fashioned Hafner sign where the donkey kicks, but I don't know if we can get that.
You're not allowed to do that anymore. I'd be delighted to do it if you let me do it. But...
Other than that, no, I don't have anything. It looks pretty straightforward.
Excellent. All right, Dylan.
Yeah, thanks. Are the bulbs being changed out at all? Is the illumination level going to change on the signage in any way?
Not on the ID sign or the building sign, no.
How about on the canopy signs?
They're all lit by LED, which is a much more eco-friendly method of lighting signage. You know, there's no disposal costs, and they use significantly less energy.
Yeah, but you're not proposing any higher amount of illumination on the canopy sign than we approved a year ago in February?
But
No.
in fact, because of the square footage less.
Yeah, great. Then no questions. I think we had a robust discussion last February, Darren.
All right, cool. Good. Kate,
Yeah, just a lot of it is just swapping out things that was already there.
Okay, can you pull your microphone down?
Oops, sorry.
Okay.
That's what I get for drinking coffee. A lot of these sign change are just swapping out. So they were existing sign, square footage. I think if you put them all together, it's more than 100, well, but not necessarily all in one place. So I really don't have any comments. It seems good. The mule's kicking. He's just not moving when he kicks. So, no, I think just like with Dylan, just the brightness of it, that it be as minimal as possible, but enough for people to see the signs. Over.
great. Bob?
Yeah, so I agree with the analysis that it's a one-for-one replacement. The only thing I want to call attention to is the package is not complete. It does show the new signage on the pumps. And in fact, that signage is already, that rebranding has already occurred. So there are 12 Hafner's logos on the 6 pumps right now that we haven't approved yet. So that's kind of a foul. But also there's no mention in the summary of all the signage of those 12 signs. So I would request that the package have that added to it. They do show the pump signage. They just don't summarize it in the count of all of the signage on the site.
But if I could answer that, we got permission from the town to do that. It's a requirement to change brands that the dispensers display, and this is a part of the Mass State Code, that the dispensers show the brand of fuel being distributed. And we got permission through the town to do that.
Okay, so in that case, I would ask that you, if we could just get that resubmitted so that it was correct, because that was not in our package. That was not explained.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may jump in here briefly, I did have a conversation with our building commissioner based upon a conversation with Mr. Schaffer earlier today. The commissioner did have one or more conversations with the applicant, and I believe some of these issues that he's raising about a necessity for identification and compliance with general laws, I think there was some understanding reached between the commissioner. I think the applicant was certainly under the impression that they could move forward on the pump signage, but not the canopy or any other signage. And so I just want to be clear, I think the applicant was doing everything that they thought to be above board, and we are more than happy to incorporate the detailed information about the pump signage as part of this board's special permit decision.
That sounds good. Bob, is that?
Yeah,
as long
I
as
just
that language is
asked that
included?
be part of the file because that was not clear to me when I first read the package. I frequent the establishment, and I noticed a couple of weeks ago, all of a sudden, the Hafner brand, which was kind of a surprise. And then I saw this in the package. So I was aware that the signage had been changed when I was pumping gas.
Okay.
We're happy to include that for you.
Yeah.
Great.
And just one other note, I don't know what a lig thing is.
What's that?
I don't know what brow lig thing is on the screen right now. Well, brow lighting.
So we made that clear because in the Gulf proposal, Gulf had requested downlighting on the canopy, and we wanted to make it clear that we were not proposing that in this particular case.
Yeah. All right, good.
No, I was joking about the word lig thing, Paul. It's a misspelling in our package.
Yeah, lighting has an H in it, so that's, yeah. So, I guess
You as well, it does not spell well.
my question, I guess, is the signs themselves, they're channel letters, right? So they're not, it's not like a big light box. It's the same design as the Gulf. Okay. All right, good. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I think the overall area is reduced. So I like the fact that there's no proposed canopy lighting, which we all were against last time. So that's all good. So I guess we'll go to the audience. Matt, is there anybody in the audience that has any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we received two questions from Paul Fassbender and Chris. One, I've seen Hafner signs in other areas that show a dynamic kicking motion. Will any signs on this site give the impression of motion? Parentheses, prohibited by 5.3.6.4, changing image, moving, or
Yeah, I think
another typo sign. Two, the other stations have mechanical signs for displaying price. It would be more equitable to remove the LED signs and restore the previous mechanical signs, which have worked fine for many years and don't conflict with 5.3.6.7 direct LED sign.
all right. I think the first one was addressed. I think Mike brought up the kicking mule. So this we've been assured it's not going to have a kicking motion. And then secondly, I think we already approved the LED lighting change when it was done for golf. So I don't know if anybody on the board wants to revisit that.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think if I remember correctly from that public hearing, I think Cumberland Farms has LED price display signs for as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, because we approved those two. So, okay. Yeah, and we also had that caveat in there about brightness too, and that has to be to the building commissioner's agreement. So again, unless anybody on the board has any comments on revisiting the LED, I think we're all set with that. Thank you. Any other comments or questions, Matt?
They continued on. Cumberland Farm has LED signs on the pumps, but not elsewhere. That was my point. Okay. So,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we're aware of that.
I see no other, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Anything else from the board? Any other questions for the applicant or comments? Anything, Jeff, from staff on this one? Anything else? No. All right. Seeing none, is there a motion then to approve PB 2117 special
Chair, do
permit?
you want to close the hearing first?
On Wilton
Yeah, we
Road?
got
I move that we close the public hearing on PB 2117.
second.
All right. Motion a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right. I say aye.
So we talked, I'm on the motion. There was a discussion, like in the decision, that it would, isn't this my understanding, that it would include the total signs and locations, or is that going to be somewhere else? Because Bob had brought it up.
Right. Jeff, you mentioned it was going to be memorialized in the decision.
So my understanding, and please correct it if it's wrong, is that you wanted staff to incorporate the fuel pump signage already installed, but with that information incorporate as part of this current decision. So there's a record of it in the decision and public record.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And relative to that, I think I'd like to have, just make sure the record includes the date. So obviously, we're meeting tonight on 17 May. And there was a time in the last 2 or 3 weeks when that rebranding took place in part. And I just want to make sure that we clear on the record what occurred when, so that if anybody comes back, we have a record of what occurred when relative to our decision.
So you would have that in the order of events section?
I think so, yes.
Record of proceedings, we can do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Let's see, I move that we approve the request from it for the change in signage from Gulf to Hafner's for the canopy and for the, what's the other one called?
Pole sign.
And the pole sign, because the other ones are already, and as well as over the, on the building from Gulf to Hafner's. As well as any additional signage changes required on the pumps.
Second?
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, approving PB 2117 special permit for sign, 179 Middleton Road, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. That brings us then to PB 2111, the first of our zoning bylaw amendment requests here. So I guess we should have a little discussion with staff here about the best way to proceed with this, the most efficient way in terms of voting individually, or do we want to vote at the end, whatever's most efficient for staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you are probably aware, the Select Board is meeting next Tuesday to conclude their discussion about recommendations respect to the proposed amendments. And so immediately after that, they'll begin preparations for the usual mailings that go out to the voters as part of the FinCon information. It would be ideal and most informative if this board concluded their public hearings and offered their recommendations prior to the Select Board meeting next Tuesday. And that way, I think the voters will be as informed as possible prior to town meeting. And especially since I believe there are no plans for a large screen format at town meeting, I think it would be ideal to get the information out as soon as possible. So to that end, though, I also would like to state that in particular for the zoning amendment relative to the drive-throughs, I think it would be beneficial to budget some time to allow for review by town council prior to you closing your public hearing. And so I understand that does not leave a lot of time to have the most ideal outcome. You could, nothing prevents you from acting on the various amendments separately. As you mentioned, you did open them, you can close them separately. It does create some additional effort and paperwork if we have multiple public hearing closure dates and when the board takes their recommendations, when we take that information potentially to the Attorney General's office, but that shouldn't be a deciding factor here for you. If the board were able to have a special meeting, say next Monday, that would allow the maximum amount of reaction time, maximum amount of review time, and still give input to the Select Board before they take their positions, if they're going to take any. So just for your thoughts and consideration, and we're happy to answer any more questions you might have.
All right, thanks. So I think, I prefer to keep things as efficient as possible. I guess the first question then we should find out from the board is, would everybody be available next Monday for a special, planning board meeting to discuss just the zoning bylaw amendments and vote to whether or not to recommend them, maybe next Monday evening?
I'm available.
I'm available.
I'm available.
I should be, Darren. I do have to be in my company's new facility for the day doing a partial implementation of the networking equipment, but I hope to be home by 7:30 if things go well.
All right, good. All right, cool. So yeah, I think then let's plan on doing that then. Let's go through the items tonight. I guess we can continue them to next Monday, Jeff?
If that's what the board decides, yes, we're happy to set that up.
All right, then we'll go through each one.
I don't know, do we have to continue all of them, Darren, or can we?
Well, I think Jeff was just saying if we close some tonight, it's just more of an administrative hassle for the staff.
Oh, okay.
Rather than if we close them all next week.
Okay.
So I think we're ready to close some of them. We'll just continue them on and close them next week for for efficiency, I guess. So, all right. So let's plan on doing that. And what's the date then? Next week is the 24th. All right. All right. So Jeff, since we've already opened these, we can just, we don't need to open them again. We can just have discussion on each one and then basically vote each item to be continued to the 24th, right?
Correct, sir.
All right. All right, good. All right, that all being said, let's move on to the first zoning bylaw amendment discussion, which is PB 2111. It's the gender neutral amendments to the town zoning bylaw to reflect recent amendments to the town charter and non-substantive changes. We talked about this last meeting. I think we all opined on it. There might have been some comments as well. Kate, you kind of ran us through last time. Is there any updates on this? Have there been any changes since last meeting when we discussed it?
I would like to just say one thing, Jeff, need to figure out how to do this since it's not a planning board article. On this, on the second page of the proposed changes, which is 56 in the packet, on 9.2.2.3, middle of the page, Dylan had made a good grammatical suggestion for the proposed language, that it in the part in the red where it says due to inability to obtain a permit, that
That's right.
he recommended changing that to due to an inability to obtain a permit. So Jeff, what do you think is the best way to get that slight change to the selectmen?
So one, we can just talk with council, but it might be as simple as the planning board, when you make your recommendation on your report, you recommend that the word "and" be added as you requested. And then in the meantime, prior to next week's meeting, I can see what opportunity we have to just see if they are willing to make that change on their own. But no matter what, when it comes time for your recommendation, I would recommend that you include that in your final report if it's not already addressed by the time you meet next.
Okay.
All right, that was the only change, I think, since our last discussion. Anything else from the staff from the board on this one? Anything, Matt, from the audience relating to this particular item?
I do not see any questions, Mr. Chair, or any hand raises.
Okay. So I guess, is there then a motion to continue PB 2111 to the planning board meeting on 5/24?
Starting at 7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
via web webinar. So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to continue. All those in favor, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. All right. The next item is PB 2112. It's an amendment requested an amendment to update section 3.4, which relates to home occupations to allow for home occupations by right. And there was an update on this since our last meeting. I'll go to Jeff if you want to run us through that.
Sure. Mr. Chair, as you may recall, there was some public comment received at the last meeting where they had wondered if there might be an opportunity to allow for small-scale tutoring or instructions. And so I asked Council to suggest some language that will allow for the one-on-one instructional services, that would also be an exemption. In other words, it would be permitted by right. So you have before you the yellow highlighted language and to see if the board would like to include that as part of the final language.
It sounded good to me, and it's in the section that applies to all remaining districts, which is basically residential.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. Whoever thought of it, was something we would have put in there. So I think it was a great idea, and it seems to make sense to me.
Yeah.
I agree. It made sense to me as well.
Okay. Bob?
Agree.
All right, cool. Anything else except for anything beyond the updated language from staff here or from town council here?
No, Mr. Chair, we did just add the word such as we talked about last time, the previous section. So there's nothing new though that this board hasn't already considered.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think we discussed.
I do. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Section 3, I know, section 3413, that it's other home occupations allowed by right in all remaining districts. Are you just doing in all remaining districts as a hedge against the potential of creating a different new types of districts, or is there any reason not to just say within residential districts?
So this is a little more nuanced. So technically there are other districts besides the RA and RB. However, in those districts, if you go to the appendices of uses, they're actually, home occupations aren't allowed in those districts. So from a practical standpoint, it doesn't make a difference. And the districts where it's not allowed home occupations, they're districts that you wouldn't anticipate home occupations to be, because residential uses aren't typically allowed there. So, but if you would like us to ask council before the next meeting, if it makes sense to put just RA and RB, we can do that. But I did raise that point to council explicitly, that it was more than RA and RB, but it was kind of resolved in the table of appendices of uses. They thought that the existing language could remain and be fine as written. I said it was nuanced.
It is. It's just like what's left, when you read it.
Yeah, there are, I think, at least two other districts. It might be some of the industrial where I don't think you would, from a practical standpoint, Kate, I don't think it really makes much difference, because you wouldn't expect to see residential homes with a home occupation as an accessory use to the residential primary use. But they're prohibited anyhow in those two districts, home occupations. So it doesn't really matter, but I understand you may want it to say RA and RB.
I think just for ease of people reading it, but then if you keep it the way it is, then we don't have to go and change it again if we decide to allow houses in those other districts. So it's probably better to keep it the way it is.
It's up to the board. We're willing to, whatever you want.
Yeah, I'm happy the way it is. Anybody else feel strongly about specifying RA and RB there as opposed to all remaining? And it does give us flexibility, as Kate mentioned as well, so,
I'm fine with it as is, Darren.
okay. All right, Kate, are you okay if it stays as is?
Yep, nope, I'm fine.
Okay. Matt, anything from the audience on this particular item?
I do not see any, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. All right, great. All right, so for PB 2112, is there a motion to continue this item to the 5/24 planning board meeting at 7:30 via webinar?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion a second. All those in favor of continuing, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye. All right, this brings us to PB 2113. This is the proposed amendment to the bylaw to amend general definitions to define and regulate restaurant drive-through facilities. So we've had obviously some activities since last meeting. And Bob, if you don't mind, I'll let you kind of give us an update and then where we're going from here.
Okay. So Matt, if you could bring up the most recent motion language that I provided to you this afternoon.
Was this it?
No, actually the motion, the actual,
Actually, okay.
and it's Rev 2.
Yep, I see it. Pulling up now.
Okay. We can go through this if people want, but I provided an information briefing. First and foremost, the first change that has happened just since last week is for the select board, when they finalized the warrant, deleted some articles. So instead of Article 23, this article is now Article 21. The second thing that happened was we worked with town council early last week, as well as Dan with the FinCom. And you'll notice that the actual language in the article now specifies the section as well as the name of that section. So there's a slight formatting change on the article language. And just waiting on that. You need me to resend it to you, Matt?
Nope, I just had things
Okay.
paused.
So you can see here that the changes are Article 21. We call out all the sections here in the article. Section 5.3 had been missing. There was a 10.2 had been, if you can go scroll back up 1 second there. Just and then Section 8 had been misnamed in the version early last week as the Water Resource Protection Overlay District, and that's not correct. So we got that fixed. So that's all finalized, and that was signed by the selectmen middle of last week. Scrolling down now, you see the motion here, and just keep on scrolling. This has not changed in a week or two, 2 weeks. But as we come down here a little lower, all that same. So now when we come here into the overlay district, just remind people that this is an overlay district for drive-through restaurants that's going to be along Littleton Road and limited to only those parcels that have frontage on Littleton Road. There are a number of parcels that have frontage on Concord and Powers Road that would not be participating, as well as some parcels up in the north of town. If you want to see the zoning district, I have included the zoning maps in that overview briefing. Now, when we get down here into Section 894, Dylan helped me immensely last week, and we worked quite a bit to restructure this and add a lot more standards. We did merged the section previously called standards in the version we discussed 2 weeks into this section here. But we also, with Dylan's assistance, have now really defined and tried to address the issue of drive-through lanes, as well as the issue of idling, and put some constraints on those, all in this section here. You'll notice that right now we're looking at a standard of an analysis where if the length of time from the time you the expected time for entering the queue to when you pay and pick up your order exceeds 5 minutes, then we're asking them to set up a escape lane kind of situation where you would park. And this is where we put in more control for that kind of a customer, where there's a customer awaiting pickup at parking space area. And there would be signage that would require anybody driving an internal combustion engine vehicle to turn off their vehicle while they wait. So I think this is an improvement over what we now get with curbside pickup. So up until this version, we've been asked the question, what's the difference between curbside pickup versus drive-through? This is one of the differences. We would have the ability through this special permit process to require this. Also here, if you look at number 9 under this section, we are looking, and number 10, we are looking at the issues of outdoor speakers associated with the ordering kiosk, as well as lighting, and to look at minimizing that impact on abutting properties with an emphasis on residential properties. I do want to still have a discussion here amongst the board. I'm looking for your opinions, requiring what to do not only about abutting residential, but also abutting commercial properties especially. I'm not as concerned about the industrial, but for example, it's quite possible to get a restaurant next to another, let's say another restaurant that has outside dining. And I think the last thing you'd want to do is have a negative effect caused by the ordering speaker of one restaurant upon, let's say, a fine dining establishment that might have an outdoor dining area. So we have to be respectful of those two abutting businesses. Again, like the previous standards, the only restaurants that would be permitted to participate are those located on an end cap or be freestanding. Scrolling down here, another change, I think since the last planning board meeting when we had a discussion, I had a really nice discussion with Dylan on this, and we are going to limit this to no more than 6 special permits in the drive-through restaurant overlay district. And the thinking is that this would be handled similar to the way the state and the town regulate alcohol establishments, and that we set a hard cap on the maximum number. And if you want to increase it with alcohol and liquor sales establishments, that's a process by which you go through town meeting and go up through the state through home rule petition. In the case of drive-through restaurant overlay district special permits, the process would simply be go through town meeting. You'd have to request that there be an increase. At this point in time, I think 6 is more than generous for the roughly 4 miles of road that comprise this proposed new district, which is from the Chelmsford town line to the Littleton town line along Route 110 Littleton Road. Actually, I just realized, I think 897, I'm going to strike. I apologize. I did not strike that here. I think all of the dimensional signage and ordering kiosk standards have now been addressed to the proposals to change the sign, amend the sign bylaw section, as well as the standards for the ordering kiosk that Dylan assisted me in section 894. So 897 is going to be struck. Scrolling down here to 898. I just want to mention, I mean, we've talked about this, but I want to emphasize this for everybody, that a special permit is discretionary. We are not obliged to grant them. The other thing I want to remind folks here with this special permit is that this drive-through restaurant overlay district is contained wholly within the Route 110 master plan area of study. So that's an additional set of standards and advisements that advise the board as to the character and the standards for this road for all businesses. So that's a quick summary of where we are with that motion. Again, a lot of thanks. I've talked with Kate. I've talked with Dylan. Dylan really helped me out in big time last Thursday night as we got this to bed and put it in the packet.
Bob, if I may?
Yep.
I think the one thing that I didn't hear you call out that we did discuss is defining drive-through restaurant establishments as under the major commercial development part of the bylaw. Did you cover that in your overview?
No, I did not. And that was that's an important change we did last week, and we did that to put the additional controls associated with an MCP. So,
yeah, specifically that would force a traffic study, which we think would be, appropriate in this case. And it also is consistent with referencing the noise section of the major commercial project section of the bylaw with regard to that outdoor speaker.
Now we've had a lot of questions regarding idling and that issue. There's no ideal solution here right now. We think that this is an improvement over the current situation. For one, as I said, curbside pickup, we don't have the ability to regulate other than voluntary actions by establishments to put signage up to request their patrons not idle. This gives us a little more teeth in our regulation with respect to that. And I think another point that's important, we've taken testimony. We've also heard this during the information meetings and during some of our public outreach discussions with other boards and committees in town, that there is a constituency that are driving to surrounding communities like Chelmsford to take advantage of the drive-through restaurants there. And so not only are they spending more gas to drive a further distance over to Chelmsford, they're also not being regulated, and I'm assuming they may be idling in those areas. So we've done the best we could here, I think, to minimize idling and address that concern. I know we got a very interesting letter this today in our packets from the Clean Energy Committee chair on this issue. I also just want to respond to one other letter that we got in our packet from Mr. Chu, and I continue to correct this misinformation about Chelmsford. One, I really urge Mr. Chu to read the Chelmsford zoning bylaw. In the table of use regulations, they have a commercial, I believe it's CB and CC districts, and that is the districts where for many years, I think it's 30 or more, there have been, through special permit by the planning board, drive-through restaurants permitted. Only there's a special district that was created between town meeting, I think in 2016, amended in 2019 on Route 129, in which drive-through fast casual restaurants, it's not drive-through restaurants, it's a very specific segment on Route 129 in that special overlay district that permits fast casual. So that information is not correct in the letter. So we are looking at we're just looking at fast food, drive-through restaurants. We have not limited them to fast casual, but it is very similar to what is allowed in CB and CC in our neighboring town, Chelmsford. That's a pretty good summary, I think, at this point where we are. As I say, we're going to be, I think we have an EDC meeting this Thursday morning. We also will be having another information forum on the 26th. We also will be going to the select board, I think, for discussion of these zoning changes on the 25th, a week from tomorrow.
Right. Excellent. Thanks for the recap. Thanks for the work put into this, Dylan and Bob and those involved. So that's great. I guess I'll go to the board for comments or questions. I have one question first. Actually, Jeff, go ahead.
I might have misheard. Bob, did you state that email was from the chair?
I thought it was, wasn't it Matt Riegert?
Yeah, I'm not sure he's the chair. It might be
Okay. I apologize.
Nick Berlin's. Yeah, he may not be the chair, but the chair was in on that email thread.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Matt, can you scroll up to the beginning of the motion? I had a question, just, it's number 2. So motion number 2, it says amend section 2.1 of the zoning by adding drive-through restaurant overlay district, DTROD, after Summer Village. So is that just telling us where we want to add that
Yes.
in the language? Okay.
Yeah. I may have it wrong, but I think town council will fix that. But I was explaining, if you look in section 211, it's a list, it's a table. And I simply added this additional item as a table item after the SVSROD.
All right, good. I want to make sure it wasn't referencing after as in Allah. So, okay, good.
Right.
Okay. All right, good. I guess I'll go to the board then. Mike, any comments or questions on?
Just want to say, Bob, Dylan, Kate, great job on this. My questions were answered, but my major question was the limit of 6, but that seems to make sense. And I do like the idea of making it the major project with the traffic study, because I think that's going to be important. We hope that this does bring in more traffic, because it's going to bring in more tax dollars. But if it's more traffic, it's more cars. So I think that all makes sense. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Great. Dylan, anything else from
Darren,
I caught one. Oh,
I just
sorry, go
want
ahead, Bob.
if you look at the briefing that I provided, I did get some information from Jeff and Dan relative to that. You know, the master plan for the town from 95, and when the master plan was redone in 2009, it didn't really change this. It asked it as a question without an answer. But there's always been an objective to increase our tax revenue from the commercial industrial sector up to 20 to 25% of our total revenue. And right now we are sitting just below 10% for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2020. So
right.
I think that talking to Mike's point, you know, we don't like talking about increasing traffic on the road per se, but we are looking to increase traffic within our businesses so that we can realize a higher revenue, as well as higher revenues for the businesses and tax revenue for the town.
Great. Yep, exactly. Thank you. Dylan, anything else?
I just wanted to point out for those who might be looking at the packet that on rereading through this again this weekend, I caught I guess a use of the vernacular THRU for drive-through in a section that I was drafting on a separate night from when I was doing the work on the actual like travel lanes through the drive-through area. So I caught that, and I actually notified Bob that there's a couple of references to THRU that need to just be grammatically changed to the full THROUGH to be consistent with the rest of the language. And then the only other comment I have is, you know, I think we've put a lot of controls here around how these potential drive-through establishments for restaurants could be, you know, very well controlled and managed as far as their placement, you know, the accessibility of them, and how we could control the potential impact of those to the community and the abutters here. You know, obviously we need to get council's feedback on it. We need to make sure that everything makes sense before it's actually heard by town meeting. But I do think a good amount of work now has gone into this, and we have. I was sort of remarking to Bob while we were going back and forth on this that, you know, we're actually going to have much greater controls actually over restaurant drive-throughs and any other sort of drive-through that we might have in the town if this were to pass town meeting. So, but that's it. That's my only comments.
And let me just. So Dylan, I did fix the drive-through THRU in the latest version I put out today. So I have.
Thank you.
I removed those.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Excellent. Kate.
A few things. Where's this part where you're saying that have to have a traffic study? Because I don't see it in in anything
That's-
that we've
that's-
received.
It's actually it's part of the major commercial projects section of the bylaws. So here on the screen, when you see B under the definition of major commercial projects, add item D, there's specific criteria in that section of the bylaw that call out what constitute a major commercial project. And by adding an item D that says, the development quote includes a drive-through restaurant, that would mean that any of these would in theory be governed by the major commercial project section of the bylaw.
Okay, I'll read that part again then. Thanks to both of you, especially Bob, for the hard work. I know and to the Economic Development Committee for doing Herculean work. And we were hoping to not have to think about this until the fall, and they've really compressed the timeline. I did have something on the special permit required section at the end of it, 14 and 15. 14, it says must provide for outdoor seating. So just add the word restaurant to be consistent with the ones above it. Restaurant must provide. And then the number 15 is kind of funky to read. So I didn't know if something like this would be better for 15. Maximum hours of operation for drive-through window service is 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. or something like cannot operate outside of the hours of 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m.
If you just email that to me, Kate, I will incorporate that into the next rev.
Okay, already. Yeah. Those were and then again, you still have this, the full text of the proposed amendment is on file with the town clerk.
Let me remove that. Yeah, that was when I was filing it with them, so I can remove that.
Yeah. And I know we have received a lot of letters from people against it, and we keep hearing we don't like them because of the nice character of our town. And I just want to remind people that the people who came up with our zoning map had the wisdom to create this commercial corridor along 110. It is a commercial corridor, and you can't expect a commercial corridor to have a bucolic New England clapboard house feel to it, and it just wouldn't work unless you're up in Freeport or someplace like that. And I think to expect such is a disservice. We as a town we have an obligation to the commercial portion of the town as well as to the residential portion of the town, that we have to make it a viable place for them to live in and survive, as well as the residents. And this is one way that we can do it. Times are changing. This isn't 1960 or 1970. It's the 2000s, and it's going to change even more over the years. And I think it's appropriate for us to reevaluate things that were considered terrible many, many years ago, and have people's lifestyles changed, that this is something that we should now consider. And I think it is, because our lifestyles have changed so much. I guess if we women would just stay home and not work, things would be different, but tough noogies. So I appreciate people wanting to keep this a nice rural town, but that barn door has been opened and the horses are out before the fire and all of the cliches. Those are my thoughts.
All right, thanks, Kate.
If I may add to what Kate said, we get the comments, we don't want a Daniel Webster Highway, we don't want a Drum Hill Road scenario. And I remind people, as I emphasized here, that this does fall within the Route 110 Master Plan District. And if you haven't done so, I urge people to look at the Route 110 master plan, and with special emphasis looking at the design standards and guidelines that are part of that master plan. And that's what allows us to do the maximum effort possible to preserve some of the character and to try to minimize the impact. The use of stone walls, the use of natural materials such as clapboard, et cetera. So, you know, when you look at a Chili's in Westford, it's not like the Chili's up on Daniel Webster Highway. When you look at the McDonald's we have right now, it's not like a McDonald's on Daniel Webster Highway. There's a lot of trees, there's a lot of natural materials used, and it does fit into the Westford aesthetic, and it does help define the Westford aesthetic. So, thank you.
Right. Yeah, I think the reason we put together the sign bylaw that required a lot of work a couple of years ago was to try to keep that in place as well. So I think that's important. Yeah, I had no additional questions on that. I guess we can go to the audience. Matt, if anyone has any new comments, obviously we don't want to hear repeat comments from last meeting, but if anybody has new information or comments, let us know.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Chauncey Chu, if you could state your address for the record. Mr. Chu, you had your hand raised. Oh, he seems to be unmuted. We'll come back. On to the next one. I see there's been comments received. Let's go down to that instead. Mr. Fassbender commented that he'd like to comment but don't have access to the current bylaw draft. Will there be another bylaw draft before next week that includes more specific requirements and standards? Parentheses, time is short of resident comments, exclamation point. 2, are we planning a second survey to get more specific opinions from residents on the numbers in the draft bylaw that didn't get in the first survey? E.g. specificity of definitions, number of special permits, details in 8.9.4.10, etc.
Me to address that?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob. I think we're going to have updated version of the proposed amendment. Certainly by next time we meet on the 24th.
Jeff, if I could, maybe is it possible tomorrow morning we could get this up on the town website off the planning board page? We can provide this to Aaron.
I'll see what we can do to get this uploaded tomorrow. If I can't through my team, we'll certainly solicit the help of the IT department.
So regarding the survey, we are not planning to take any more surveys. The present survey will be running through 3 p.m. on the afternoon of June 4th. That is when the survey is going to be frozen. And at that point in time, we'll be able to share the results of the survey at the 7th of June planning board meeting. The survey here was done, I think, in the style of Acton. And if you haven't seen it, I think it's, you can always ask more questions about more topics. But we've kept it generic. We've asked people for general comments. We did get specific in terms of the positive and the negative aspects of drive-through restaurants, but we didn't get as specific as to ask about the number they wanted. For one thing, that this is something that we've responded as part of the public hearing process, which has taken shape since the survey went final.
All right, so we're not going to get an updated. It's just not. There's not going to be an updated version of the survey, though.
No, it would be confusing. First off, we're really putting a push on to get as many people as possible in town to participate in the survey, and to issue a second survey would be confusing, and it's probably very difficult at this point instance, we don't have access to the town IT staff that helped me with this until next Monday. So it would be very different.
Frankly, isn't that what we're doing here? If people have ideas and want to make comments or suggestions, what have we been doing the past 3 meetings?
Yep.
Really? Don't.
Exactly. And that's why we're having another one. So, yeah.
And we are monitoring the survey. We had a little bit of an oops here where the survey fell off the hit list on the town website the past few days. So we got it pushed back up to the top of the news items. And we certainly saw an uptick today in the survey because of that. We're also using social media to put out requests to people to participate. And we're seeing fairly consistent trends in the survey. What's happened, in the first day versus what happened in the middle versus what's happening now, it's consistent, is what I'll say.
All right, good. Thank you. I think that addressed all those comments from Mr. Fassbender. Any other comments, Matt?
We're back with Chauncey. I think we're going to try it again. Chauncey, can you try speaking? Thinking we are having an issue, connection issue of some sort. I do not know.
Okay. See if he wants to submit a question.
Or does he have another device he could come in on? No.
Any new information? All right, anybody else out there, Matt, while we're waiting for Mr. Chu?
I do not see any hands raised, nor have there been any additional questions.
Okay. Anything else from the board while we're waiting to see if Mr. Chu joins us? Nothing. Jeff, anything from staff on this one? Additional?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Chauncey, you're unmuted if you can speak.
Or if he can let you know that he's
Hearing you.
I think he's hearing all of us. He's following along. Let's try a workaround to make
certainly submit any questions or comments, to staff. And as we said, we're going to have another meeting on this next Monday. So any questions or comments ahead of time would be probably helpful.
Chauncey, are you able to speak now? I'm not seeing. Chauncey, now you're self-muted. If you unmute yourself, you should be able to. I don't know, Mr. Chair. It has a green microphone, and I don't know.
Right. Well, I just say let's, Mr. Chu, I would say if you have any comments or questions, please submit them. And then, like I said, we're going to be talking next Monday night about this as well. So certainly an opportunity there to address any comments or questions you have.
Great.
So Matt, if there's no other comments or questions from the audience, is there a motion then to continue discussion of the drive-through?
PB 2113.
Yeah, PB 2113 to the 24th.
So move.
Second.
Let me add at 7:30 via webinar.
Right. All right. All those in favor as amended, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
I say aye. All right, great. That brings us to PB 2114. It's a proposed amendment regarding amendments. This is a citizen's petition. Is the applicant here?
Well, Mr. Chu is, but as previously stated, we're having technical difficulties.
All right, so
Maybe
anything.
he should call in on a phone.
Right.
Sure. If we want to, I can send that number to him, Mr. Chair, if you go to another item for the time being.
Yeah, is there any other comments or questions from the audience here? First of all, I'll go to the board. Is there anybody on the board that has anything new on this one since last time we talked last meeting?
Only to ask, respecting that the applicant can't communicate with us for some reason now, understandably, but do we think that there would be new news on this? It seems pretty cut and dry.
I know. So I'm thinking with no other comments from the audience or staff, or staff of the board, again, this will be open again next Monday, the 24th. So if there's anything that the petitioner would like to add or update, certainly we'll have that discussion, the ability next Monday as well.
Yeah, because I just had a comment on the response from town council about staff's two questions. And while he did not directly answer the questions, is his response a lawyer's way of saying that this amendment is probably not legal and we can vote on it, but it would be up to the Attorney General to decide if it passes legal review?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I would never presume to say what council meant by what they put in writing, but it does seem as though council is at least suggesting whatever happens with this amendment, it won't change the effects of what already is in the general laws about an article may return to town meeting sooner than 2 years if there's favorable report by the planning board.
So a town cannot create zoning bylaws that are in conflict? Is that the gist of this? I know you can't speak.
I think it's possible for there to be bylaws that are in conflict with the general laws, but they're saying, council's suggesting that even if you do that, it's not going to trump the general laws. It won't nullify the effect of 40A section 5. From a practical standpoint, I think, yes, whatever happens, it could still come back sooner than 2 years.
But regarding town council opinion, I'm assuming we will get to hear town council speak to this during the select board meeting on the 24th. And we definitely will get to hear them speak to it on town meeting floor on the 12th of June.
Right. All right.
Yeah,
so
I know town meeting, we have a different person than the one who wrote the opinion. So as long as they coordinate.
All right. So any additional comments on this? Again, it's going to be open until next Monday when we'll have to have final discussion. So any luck, Matt, with Mr. Chu?
No, I'm muted. Mr. Chu, one last time, are you able to speak? Microphone working? I do not think so, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Then is there a motion then to continue PB 2115 to the May 24th planning board meeting at 7:30 via webinar?
So moved.
Chair, that was 2114, correct?
2114, right, sorry. All right,
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor of continuing PB 2114, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. All right, that brings us to PB 2115. A citizen's petition to amend the zoning bylaw to include the Merrill's Quarry property within the senior residential multifamily overlay district. Is the applicant here? Matt?
The representative is Melissa.
Yes, Melissa Robbins, I'm here, Mr. Chair. Just I'm on the microphone but don't have camera access.
Okay, great. All right, I know there's been some activity since last discussion. You want to give us an update on where we are? I think there was some residents that got together. You want to bring us up to speed on where we are since our last discussion?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Since the last meeting, we've had a couple site visits with members of the planning board. We'll be able to walk the site pretty comprehensively. So thank you for going out there and seeing the site. We did get a letter from the superintendent as to the use of the playing fields as to the rear of Reader Miller School. Generally, he was supportive. I think that his major concern was blasting and impacts to the school. Obviously, we would make sure that our blasting schedule had no impact to the students in that school. So that'd be something that would be worked out during the public hearing process. As to the abutters, we actually had our first abutters meeting prior to the first meeting with this planning board. We did have one of the abutters, the Brunos, actually step up and agree to be the lead abutter for the abutters group. And they're in the process of getting all of the comments from the abutters. We're hoping to meet with them again soon so that we can go through their comments, continue to work with them cooperatively, and we're going to have another meeting with them. So that process has been going well. They've been very communicative and giving us their comments. And I think largely the board heard most of them at the last meeting. And hopefully by next Monday, perhaps we can get together one more time with the abutters to come back to the board. But I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. Scott Clark from Clark Property Development, as well as Katie Enright, is on the line as well. So if there's any questions from the board we can answer this evening, we're happy to.
Great, thank you. Jeff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a follow-up from the last time the board met on this. There was a question as to the required vote at town meeting to approve this due to recent amendments to 40A. We did start that process the day after the planning board meeting. We did request the advisory opinion. DHCD reached out to us. We're now in a process with them, working with the applicant to provide DHCD with all the information that they require to make the determination. They are aware of when our town meeting is. They are aware of some of our mailing deadlines to inform voters. So they're going to try their best to get us their advisory opinion as soon as possible. I believe certainly before town meeting, but I can't guarantee that'll be soon enough from a practical standpoint for all the mailings, but we're going to try our best.
Great, thank you. All right. And Jeff, you had mentioned something about the applicants aware that there has to be reference to the town zoning map for this overlay if it goes through. Is that?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. So one of my questions to council based upon what happened to us with the Summer Village short-term rental overlay district is these days the Attorney General's office is fairly firm on requiring that all zoning districts, even overlay districts, be shown graphically on the zoning map. And so I did reach out to the applicant. They are amenable to any amendment that would include reference to that. There is some language suggested by town council to that effect. They think it would be prudent for the planning board in their final report or their recommendation to amend the request to simply note that any parcels in the overlay district be shown graphically on the zoning map. And that way, the parcels that are already in it for more than 20 years, they would also be shown. It would be awkward to show only perhaps the new parcels associated with Merrill's Quarry if there's favorable town meeting action, and to not show the parcels that were in, decades ago. So we feel as though it makes sense to try to treat this all at once in the interest of, transparency and having a clearer zoning bylaw. So the applicant's willing, council thinks it's the right approach, and we just hope you factor that into your final recommendation.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'll go to the board. I think some folks have the chance to do the site walk, so I'll go to the board. Mike, anything on this one since the last discussion?
Nope, not since the last discussion. Thank you.
Dylan?
I was able to get out there with Attorney Robbins and other members of the applicant's team for a site walk Saturday morning. Lovely, area. And I think the plan that they've outlined would be a really great use of that space. Obviously, as we know, Westford Police Department is in favor of this. I think it solves a few problems, and it creates a really great potential addition to the town's housing stock for people who are over the age of 55, and that's obviously sorely needed in town. So I don't have any further questions. Having seen the parcel, you really can start to visualize what the intent of the applicant is, and I think has the potential to be a fantastic project. So very interested to see how this goes at town meeting.
Great, thank you. Kate?
I had the good fortune to go on the site walk on Friday afternoon. Lovely weather then too. And Melissa, please let Mr. Clark is on as well, that the cute plant that I found on the rocks is a common plant called rock harlequin. It's not endangered, so you can go.
That's great to know. Thank you very much, Ms. Hollister.
But I think it's a good use in theory. We do need housing for people who are over 55, with or without children. But it's not just any housing we need. It's housing that the people who are in that age group can afford, or that they need. I've had people commenting how, as I've said before, how they want to downsize, and things that have come up in town in the last few years have been out of their price range. So I think I would like to hear from the proponents more about the housing, what you're proposing, because there is a backlash out there because of all of the luxury units and the very expensive units that have been built, both condos as well as apartments in the last couple of years, 2 to 3 years. A lot of people are dissatisfied that that's all that's being built. So I would like to hear more about what's planned for this. I appreciate you have the right to have a variety of house prices, but people need to be reassured that if they approve this, that it's something that the average person can actually have a hope of moving into. So I don't know if you have given any thought to it now. I would really need to have something from you by the next meeting if we're supposed to take a vote at the next meeting, and definitely it should be part of any presentation at town meeting. On not just we're going to have 95 units, but what's the size variability, housing or pricing variability that you're going to have in there. The other thing that you might get questions about at town meeting, it has to do with how this development can help us with this town meeting resolution for zero net carbon by 2050, because I've already had members of the Environmental Action Committee or whatever they're called, asking me about that. So you should be prepared for those as well, that kind of a question.
Great.
All right, thank you, Kate. We can dig into that a little bit more and try to give you more of a range and some specificity for next Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, all set, Kate?
Yep.
Great. Bob?
Yeah, so while I remember this, Jeff, I will work with staff this week because I think your comment about the clearly showing the zoning district, we need to do the same thing for the drive-through restaurant overlay district and show the parcels that are included there. So we'll have to work on that, and I'd like to work on that before next Monday. Regarding the site walk, I guess one thing I've said since last Friday, there's very few perks that come with the as being a member of the planning board. We're not allowed to take any gratuities, but I looked at Friday as a real perk. It was just a gorgeous property. We got to have legal access to a site and see it that most people don't get to normally visit. Just a lot of beauty. I mean, it was worked industrially, but even then it is still a very, very visually stunning site up there. Couple comments that I didn't hear anybody else reference yet is based upon the questions and the discussions that we had with Melissa and Scott and Katie on Friday, I think it's important to let the residents know that the plan that's on file right now is simply a conceptual plan. We did note when we were out there that there were additional wetlands, potentially vernal pools, that have to be added and documented. There's still a lot of work to document the ledge, to look at the test holes. So there's still quite a bit of work with Scott and his team of folks required to really understand, characterize the site and to optimally place the units in that plan. There were a number of plant species. I mean, Kate alluded to that. We did observe lady slippers. We did take special note of the close proximity of the part of the parcel that was adjacent to the Rita Miller School and looked at the potential site for the soccer field. I don't think I heard anybody reference, but we did get a letter of recommendation and voice of support from the superintendent of schools regarding that. And we have some additional inputs in terms of some of the things they're requesting for how to have the schools and the residents of this development share that field. And lastly, I just emphasize that, you know, this is a development that's going to be in close proximity to Stone Ridge. And I think if this were to go through, you've got two communities of over 55 residents in close proximity. So it brings up a good potential for some sharing between those two communities. I talked with, Melissa and Katie on Friday about the possibility of having a trail access connected across Tingsboro Road between those two communities. So there's just a number of things that could come out of this that would be real beneficial for our senior population here. And that's everything.
Great, thank you. I think I agree with the comments tonight. As I said before, I agree with the project conceptually. I'm glad to see the applicant is still working with the residents and coordinating kind of a response there. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of those comments from hopefully the abutters by next Monday and some responses from the applicant there. So let's go to.
I just wanted to add to that. This is a funky thing, and we don't have a lot of time to actually discuss it like we would say with a preliminary design or design review or development review. because this has to go to town meeting for the approval to make the overlay district, and they have to provide a conceptual plan. But then the question is, how much leeway does planning board have if it gets approved at town meeting based on that concept plan? How much leeway do we have still to work with the applicant afterwards? Because it just says in the bylaw that we would then do a site plan review. So a lot of the horse trading, if you want to call it, like Bob is alluding to here, that's not really part of necessarily a site plan review. So I have a little heartburn that we have to come up with a recommendation, but whatever we agree to recommend, we're basically going to be beholden to that when it comes to site plan review, is my understanding. If somebody knows otherwise, I would like the reassurance.
Well, Kate, this is Melissa speaking. It's site plan review plus, because it's not just vanilla site plan review. We also have to meet the standards of the senior residential multifamily overlay district, which actually comes with a host of its own requirements. It's not just in the underlying zoning. And remember, we don't just have to satisfy the planning board. We have to have full survey on the site. We're going to have to do a notice of resource area delineation. We're going to have to get a notice of intent, as you pointed out. Not only will we have to go through the planning board after we do all of that and figure out where our actual limit of work is, we'll have to test for the ledge. This will also trigger full MEPA review, probably a mandatory EIR. And we also will have to permit a wastewater treatment facility. So, I mean, I think there is a lot of permitting to be done. We still have to jump through all those hurdles and meet all of the town's requirements, not just as to senior residential multifamily, but also we have to meet the inclusionary zoning requirements that come along with that overlay. So this isn't your typical site plan review that we check the turning analysis and check the stormwater and we check the boxes and we're done. There's a lot more boxes here to be checked. So I'd also like to point out that the applicant here is continue to work with town boards and departments. I think that this planning board, as well as town staff, can reflect that Mr. Clark is the type of person that will continue to work with town boards, department heads, and abutters. So as we continue through this process, that will continue. And the other point is, this is just to check a box that we actually make it to the overlay. You know, if we do make it through the overlay at town meeting, we still will have to check all those boxes to make sure that all of those things are viable. So I think that your concerns are well heard, but I think there's lots of things to make sure that we're continuing through the process in good faith and are meeting all the requirements and intent of the senior residential multifamily overlay district.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, is there anything from the audience, questions or hands raised?
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chu came back on another computer, trying another computer, and he has his hand raised, but it'd be at your discretion if it's relating to this project.
Yeah, if it's relating to this project, you know, certainly please ask a question. I think you know, we've continued the prior discussion to the next Monday's meeting.
Yes, my comment's not related to this article. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we just received a, there was another question from Tom Barry asking, will there be an opportunity for a site visit for the abutters?
So I'll go to the applicant, Melissa.
No, we're not going to we're not going to try to coordinate an abutter site visit prior to town meeting, but certainly if we do get beyond the town meeting overlay, we will have to continue to work with the abutters, especially the abutters that touch the property along Vineyard Road and along the back of the property to deal with the rock piles on their property. So not quite yet.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to address, Mr. Barry is an abutter through Stone Ridge.
Okay. Any others out there, Matt?
I'm not seeing anything, Mr. Chair. I think that was all. Oh,
Great.
Another hand just got raised. Matt Mulhern, if you could state your address for the record, you're unmuted. You'll need to unmute yourself. Top kind of right-hand corner, there should be a red microphone.
Is that better?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Tim Mulhern, 2 Vineyard Road. Not sure why I'm showing up.
What was that? Is there a question?
Oh, I muted him by mistake. I'm sorry. Mr. Mulhern,
Okay.
if you could restart.
All right. Sorry, it's all right. I know that the applicant is working closely with the abutters. They've, obviously we've had one meeting with them, and it sounds like there will be another one on the books. But I just want to make sure that the planning board is aware of issues with blasting in this area, because when the Vineyard Road development was put in, and the number is escaping me, but there was a gentleman that lived on Tingsboro Road whose well went bad from all of the blasting that happened up here. And there is not currently town water available to us. I believe town water stops up by the Tyler Road cul-de-sac. So I really want to call out any mitigation that can be done ahead of time to any blasting that's being done in this area because of the history in this area. I just can't go without stating that for the record. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Great. Thank you. And certainly noted. I think, we addressed that last discussion, and I think everybody's sensitive to that around the development.
Hey, Darren?
Yeah.
Question related to that, and I guess this is for Jeff or town staff. So, Jeff, do you know if the water department maintains a map of areas that are served by town water versus that are on well, so that could be like visually represented as part of considering this development?
They do have maps of their water system. They probably also have maps of possible expansions. I do know that they were analyzing the opportunities to bring municipal water to this development. I don't know if or what other nearby areas might benefit from such extension, but we can certainly request our Public Works Director to provide whatever map is suitable for public viewing for the planning board for the next meeting.
Yeah, depending on how this article fares at town meeting, I guess we don't probably have to do anything until we know the result, but that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan, because I was on the water department site trying to find the map right now.
Matt, anything else out there?
I do not think so, Mr. Chair. I see Chauncey has his hand raised again, but I think that's just an artifact.
Okay. All right. Yeah, he mentioned that he didn't have anything specific to this item. Okay.
Right.
Anything else from the board on this one? I'm looking forward to our next Monday meeting and discussion on it. I think we'll have some more updates from the applicant at that point. So looking forward to the updated information and hopefully addressing some comments from the abutters as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Jeff, anything else from staff on this one?
No, sir.
All right. Is there then a motion to continue PB 2115 to the May 24th meeting at 7:30 via webinar?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion a second. All those in favor of continuing, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate? Kate?
Aye, sorry.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. All right, that brings us to general business. General business, the first item A, PB 2126, a request to authorize administrative review and approval for a change in use. I'll go to staff on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is another request for administrative review and approval to authorize the conversion from a business or professional office to retail sales to the general public. And I do believe the applicant may be in attendance, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. If that's the case, the applicant wants to give us a summary. That's great.
Thank you so much for your time on the agenda tonight, Mr. Chair. My name is Rita Biagioni, and the change in use is for a unit that I've recently signed a lease on. It's 142 Littleton Road, Unit 7. Just to give you guys a little bit of wherewithal, it's in the same plaza where the craft beer store and soul kitchen is, like right off of the Four Corners. And previously it had been a Lapel's Dry Cleaners, which closed sometime last year. And so we're looking to open a smoothie and tea shop. And so that's the change in use. And based on my conversations with Mr. Fontaine and Aaron, the thought was an administrative review was a potential. So I'm here tonight to ask for that, but certainly willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. I'll go to, looks pretty straightforward, and welcome. I would say I'll go to the board for any comments or questions. Mike?
Nope, looks fine to me. Welcome.
Dylan?
Similar, I had no major questions, no concerns.
Great. Kate?
I don't have any concerns with making it administrative because
Okay.
her hours of operation will not conflict with the restaurant, so parking should be okay.
Yeah, great. Bob?
Echo the same comment that Kate just mentioned. All for it. Thank you.
Great. I had the same exact, I think hours are complimentary. It's great. Yeah, so anything else from staff on this one? It seems pretty straightforward to approve the administrative review.
No further here.
All right, cool. So is then there a motion to authorize administrative review and approval?
So moved.
You said the words I was going to say.
All right. There's a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the administrative review, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. Excellent. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks.
All right, next item is general business item B. And I think I have to recuse myself on this one, as I've been recusing myself from discussion on this item since the beginning. So that said, I will do that. So Dylan, do you want to
Yep.
lead this
Kick it
one?
off. Sure. Okay, so the next item up is PB 2024 for Colonel Rolls Drive subdivision. There's a request to approve a covenant pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81U, and also a request to endorse the final plan set. So let's go to town staff. Jeff, what's the update here? We just did an A&R in I think that was in the ad hoc meeting that we had last week. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. The hope was that with benefit of the A&R plan, and if it got recorded, that would allow for the easement document. I know it was of interest to the planning board. There was an explicit condition of approval that the applicant secure all rights necessary before the board would endorse the final plans. So the applicant did provide a covenant since your last meeting. It was reviewed by council. We received benefit of that review this afternoon. We shared the comments with the applicant. The applicant was amenable to all of the suggestions. And so I don't know if the applicant, I think the applicant was here. So I don't know if they want to comment first on the covenant. And I know Mr. Schaffer had a comment about the covenant as well, I believe.
Well, let's go to the applicant if they're here so that they can make their comments, and then we'll go to the board. Matt, is the applicant with us?
I do not see them, Mr. Chair.
I don't see them either.
Okay.
Well, and so Jeff, are you in possession of the check, and do we have the documentation around the easement?
No, Mr. Chair. So if you may recall, there was a requirement for $5,000 of legal escrow because there were a number of documents that had to be reviewed by council. We do not have that, and the easement document, to the best of my knowledge as of late today, had not yet been recorded. So I do think it would be premature to act on plan endorsement, although I do think it's fair for the board to consider acting on the covenant.
Well, I guess let's go to the board for comment on the covenant then. I mean, you seem to indicate that Bob has some comments related to the covenant. So Bob, do you want to go first and share your comments on the covenant?
I had a minor one, but I thought it was important. If we could go to page 180 of the packet. Let me bring this up. Item 8, it's item number 8. If we can see that. And where it's on the second line at the end there where it says by the owner until such time as the road is turned over the relevant, it should be turned over to the relevant homeowners association. It's not a road over the homeowners association.
Mm. Yeah.
But the other question I had was relative to the plans. And I know I was just looking at them because those plans have a date after we last reviewed them. So I was looking at the revision block, and supposedly that plan is supposed to reflect our decision. But I noticed that it still says it's just referencing all the waivers requested by the board. There's nothing been changed on there to indicate that those waivers were actually acted and agreed on by this board back, I think, in mid-April.
I'm sorry, where are you seeing that again?
That's in the plans,
Oh,
the actual document. So I make that note. We won't have to deal with that tonight, but I did have that question. I tried to reach out to Jeff and staff this afternoon, and things were busy. But I did want to reach out to the applicant to ask why. I don't know what was changed in those plans, because the revision block indicates they added our decision, but I couldn't find that in the plan. So it wasn't clear to me.
So two things, if I may, Mr. Chair. So
Yes.
One part, first of all, I think the comment about the two is obviously appropriate. About the plan simply states what they had requested. The actual waivers granted and thereof and justification would be part of the decision, which it is. I don't know that we've had applicants revise the plans to doubly reflect, the planning board vote when there's already a decision, and the plan and the decision and the covenants are usually tied together. So I don't know if that helps at all.
Yeah, I guess my question, Jeff, is what was changed? Why is there a 30th of April version? I found a rev block that indicated why they changed things, but I couldn't find what they changed.
So the board had a number of conditions and or revisions requiring that certain changes be made to the plans prior to endorsement. I would have to come through that decision, but I think some of it had to do with the labeling and clarifying of the open space versus common areas. There were some areas previously identified as open, and where there were utilities and such, it made more sense for that to be common land as opposed to open space based on this board's somewhat recent discussions about how to interpret that section of the bylaw. They may have added some notes to designate an area for what could be intended for the recreational use. And then I think there were just some various typos and labels that were done. But if you need me to give you an exhaustive list,
That's
I can't
fine.
do so right now.
No, you just refreshed my memory as to what they could have. So yeah, I see that now.
Okay. Anything else, Bob?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Mike, any just speaking to the covenant, any thoughts on the covenant?
Well, council reviewed the covenant. I'm fine with it. I guess the question is it appropriate that we move on this? The applicant's not here, or we want to continue the whole thing till next Monday.
Yeah.
But I'm fine on going with the covenant now, and I think we should obviously not endorse these plans until we've got everything that we asked for.
Okay, right. Kate, any thoughts on the covenant?
Well, just there's missing information, like in the beginning, the information on how to find it at the registry. And then on item 8, we don't have a dollar amount for the passbook account. So Jeff, has anybody worked out what the amount of that passbook account should be?
No, council's biggest concern there was confirm the format that it would be by passbook, which the applicant stated they were amenable to that. There would not necessarily be an actual dollar amount established until such time as the covenant went away and they had to provide some other form of required surety, which would then be reviewed by the board and the engineering department to make sure that at that time the dollar amount was appropriate. Whereas if they provided an amount now and say they did not act on this for years, then that would create another issue. You'd already be behind. You have that opportunity when they change the form of surety to make sure that you're good with the amounts at that time. Right now, the covenant just prevents the sale of lots until the improvements are complete. And all I can say is it was reviewed by council.
Well, should something in there be deleted so that we don't have something with missing information?
I think there's nothing wrong with having that explicit question resolved by council. And if it needs to be amended, if you're okay, subject to satisfactory, additional review by council, then I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
So what's your preference, Kate? Would you rather we act on the covenant this evening, or would you rather we continue the entire thing to the next meeting when perhaps the applicant will be here and we can have the other pieces in place that we need anyway?
Yeah, why don't we continue it, because they're not going to do anything in the next couple of weeks anyway.
I mean, that's kind of the point is, I mean, the covenant doesn't really do them a lot of good without the final plan set anyway, right, Jeff?
They are tied together, so you cannot sign the plan until there's a covenant ready to go.
Right.
So, and since we know the plan needs some tweaking.
Well,
no, specifically we need the paperwork related to the easement, right? And ideally you would be in possession of a $5,000 check. The town would be.
Yes.
Right. There's nothing that has to be changed with the plan.
No.
Right.
No. We're talking about, I's and T's, dotting I's and crossing T's here. Yeah, right. But still, I think it's appropriate that Mike, unless you disagree, you're a better expert on this than me. I think it's appropriate that we have those pieces in place before we endorse the final plan set, yes?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my question is, do we bother taking action on the covenant tonight, or do we just push the whole item and just address it all at once in the next meeting?
I'd agree with that too.
When you say the next meeting, you mean June 7th or?
Correct. Yeah, June 7th. I'm assuming that what we will do next Monday would be exclusive to the zoning bylaw amendments, since we're kind of, you know, going above and beyond on that one particular topic.
I don't know, though. I think if everything's done and it's, you know, not a very lengthy discussion, maybe we try to sneak them in. I'll let the board decide on that, but that would be my thought. You know, if it's okay with staff and they have the time to deal with this in the next week.
Yeah, my only concern, Mike, on that is I think we're going to be, you know, it's going to be the last time that the public has an opportunity to opine on the zoning bylaws. We could be here for a while on that, I feel.
Okay.
I mean, that's my only concern, you know. I would agree with you. This should be be an easy one. If the pieces are in place, this should be a, you know.
Well, we don't have to.
We've already spent 15 minutes.
We can just say let's not act on it tonight, and then we don't have to give a date or time certain for this because it's just a discussion item. So we can just say we're going to not. We decided we will not. Well, it's not a decision. It's just that the board did not take any action on the two requests tonight. And then they can bring it forward again.
So does that require a motion, Kate?
No.
No, it's like Kate mentioned, it's a general business item. They can request that it can be on the next agenda, and whoever is chair will have to decide if it makes it to that agenda or not.
All right, fair enough.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Bob, you all right with that?
Yep, I'm fine.
Okay. Then let's continue on. I think I'm turning the mic back over to Darren.
All right, cool. Thanks, Don. All right, so that goes to general business item C. Two Downs Road. It's a request for an endorsement of an A&R plan to divide one lot into a smaller lot and an unbuildable lot. Jeff, do you want to give us an overview here? Do you know if the applicant is with us? Or Matt, do you know if the applicant is here?
I don't know, but this is about as straightforward of an A&R as possible. There's a large oversized lot now, and they want to divide it into a smaller lot that conforms to dimensional zoning requirements in the opinion of the commissioner. And the remainder, the lot 2, is actually a parcel and explicitly states not a building lot. So that lot does not comply, and so it cannot be built upon at this time. We do believe it is entitled to A&R endorsement.
Okay. All right, great. Any comments from the board on this one? As Jeff said, it looks pretty straightforward. Mike?
No comments. No, it looks fine to me.
All right, Dylan?
Same.
Kate, no. Bob?
I had one question. I was confused by it says an existing house, but under construction. Can we understand a little bit what's happening on the site?
So if memory serves, I think there could be a new dwelling being under construction now, not yet completed. I believe there was previously an existing dwelling there, and now they're drawing this lot line to comply with setback requirements for that lot. And I don't know exactly what their future plans are for what is now labeled the unbuildable lot. Perhaps to be used in conjunction with abutting properties.
Okay, thank you.
Great. All right, so not seeing any other further discussion on this, is there then a request, is there a motion to approve or allow endorsement of an A&R for Two Downs Road?
Without making a determination as to zoning.
Correct.
So move.
And that we authorize staff to sign as representative for the planning board. Sign the plan.
Good. Jeff, is that work?
That's fine. Is the motion maker okay with that?
Mike?
Yep.
Yep, Mike, are you good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
I'll second as, okay.
All right, so all those in favor then say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye.
Thank you.
All right, so item D under general business is PB 2129, another request for a change in use. And again, changing request to authorize administrative review and approval for a change in use. So this one is for Westford Valley Marketplace. Matt, do you know if the applicant is here for this one? Give us a quick summary on this one. Seems pretty straightforward.
The applicant is in attendance. Ms. Boylan, name for the record, please.
Actually, it's Kelly Burke. I'm here on behalf of the Wilder Companies, and I'm representing ownership of the Westford Valley Marketplace Shopping Center and the tenant Lexington Eye Associates. This is specific to 160 Littleton Roadside. Lexington Eye Associates will be taking over 3 vacant spaces that were formerly used as retail sales. And Lexington Eye Associates is primarily, they provide eye care services, and they're primarily a professional office business use, but they will have a small retail sales component of 1,200 square feet within their use. The total square footage is, as you see here, 10,321 square feet. The former uses were the Olympia Sports, GameStop, and I believe it was CardSmart, but it's been vacant since 2016 or prior to 2016. So I'm not certain of that prior use. I do know it was retail sales, however.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's great to see somebody in there taking up 3 of the spots, which is great. So
yeah, it's a great tenant, great use. We're really excited.
yeah, it's great. Anything from the board on this one? Comments or questions? Nope. All right, seeing none. Anything from staff, Jeff, on this one?
No, Mr. Chair, just that I think it represents a reduction in parking requirements.
Right. All right, good. All right, then seeing no further discussion, then is there a motion to approve administrative review and approval for a change in use at Westford Valley Marketplace, specifically for Lexington Eye Associates?
So moved.
So, second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye. All right, great. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Congratulations on another tenant.
Yes.
That's right.
Very good. Keep it up. Take
Awesome.
care.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to general business item E, PB 1801, Hummingbird Lane. There's a request to authorize removal and replacement of 3 subdivision street trees on lot 2, number 2 Hummingbird Lane. I think if both parties are here or one party, I'll give each party, 2 or 3 minutes to kind of give us an overview, and then we'll go from there.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So Matt, is one of the or one or both of the applicants here, I guess?
Both are, and Dan Pescalero has his hand raised. So I think that might be a good place to start, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. So yeah, love to hear it. We've got the stuff in our packet, so I'd love to, just a quick review would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan Pasquarello here on behalf of the Bucci's, who are the applicants. This one is pretty straightforward. It's just a request to remove, replace, and relocate 3 of the street trees. I think you should have in your packet a plan which shows the current location and the proposed location. If you see the yellow dots there.
Yeah.
There are two to the left, one to the right, and those three orange dots, which are actually in closer proximity to the street, is the proposed location for the new trees. A couple of things, if you scroll down to the photos that were provided, you can see the three orange stakes in that photo. And if you go to the next, there's another view from the house looking out. On the left side of that photo, that's one of the trees to be moved. And the issue here is one of the trees is impeding the use of a gate that's been installed. And I think in the next photo, you can see the second tree. That's the gate tree. And then in the next photo, this is a tree that's actually within a fenced area. So this is another tree that would be moved. And another benefit of this is that the replacement trees will actually be in compliance with the rules and regulations as far as caliper size. The three trees to be removed are still undersized. They don't meet the 2.5-inch caliper requirement. And they are being replaced with dogwood, so it's same type of tree. So again, we think this is pretty straightforward. I know you're aware of the history with this subdivision. I'll just address one of the comments I saw in the letter you received from the abutter. This is not the same situation that happened in 2019 when I think there was a request to just remove 3 trees from lot 2 and not have them there. So these trees will stay on lot 2. So it's a slightly different issue. It was, well, more than a slightly, it was a different issue that came before the board a few years ago. So again, this is just removal, replacement, and a slight relocation of these 3 trees.
All right, great. Now, does that mean, relocation meaning you're going to save the 3 trees that you're removing?
Yes, well, the relocation means to move the street tree spots to those 3 orange spots that you saw.
Right,
And
with new trees, right?
These trees will be placed someplace else, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Matt, is someone here from the abutters?
Yes. Lindsay Campbell, state your address for the record, please.
It's actually William Campbell, 4 Hummingbird Lane, Westford, Mass. Obviously, we submitted our letter. Our just main thing is we'd be curious, 1, where are the 3 trees going to be replanted? And 2, as our letter had stated, one of the trees in question, per Larry Bucci, what has been relocated from the plan. And I would want, I guess I should say I would request that the tree locations actually be surveyed and staked so that way we know that the tree in question is actually on their property.
A tree that's already planted or a tree that is being proposed to be moved?
The plans that they've used of ours shows the original landscaping location. And as our letter had stated, Larry requested that the trees be installed per the plan. So we had them surveyed and staked and installed. And at the time of installation, there was concern by Larry that there would be an issue with the water line. It was awfully close to where the water line potentially was. And there was a request to have the tree moved. So we actually moved that tree. So I believe that tree actually is no longer on lot 2, but again, only a surveyor would be able to say whether it is or isn't.
Can I ask a question, Darren?
Sure, of course.
Is that the tree that's in the fenced area, or is that the tree that's blocking the door, the gate?
It's neither, Dylan. It's there's a tree. If you look at the plan, the driveway for the Bucci's, there's a stone bound, and it's the tree near the stone bound. I don't think they Correct, yeah. So as you're looking at the diagram, it's the far right, closest to the driveway. This is the original, but like I said, that tree was moved closer to the road and away from the driveway because of the concern of the water line.
So you're saying the tree on the right, the one closest to the driveway, the existing tree is not on the Bucci's property?
It's hard to say. It's awfully close per the plan on the line. And then, like I said, during installation, Larry was concerned with his water line and he requested that it be moved away from it, and the tree was pulled closer towards the road. So I would just respectfully ask that if, without knowing, have a licensed engineer come out and, let's know for sure that tree is in fact on lot 2. And the, again, like our letter mentioned, the gate was just installed a week ago. I wouldn't install a gate right there with the tree, but the purposes of the gate is to access his commercial fencing that he stores on the property, which, is in violation of zoning bylaws, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. All right. Thank you. So, I'll go to the board. I'll see what the board has to say first. Let's go, Dylan.
So, I guess I have a question then for the Bucci's attorney. I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but so what, you've indicated where you're going to plant the larger dogwoods, but I don't understand where the 3 trees that are coming out are being replanted. Do you have anything that represents where you intend to plant them?
So I don't specifically know that it's elsewhere on the Bucci's lot, but they wouldn't be, the street tree requirement is being met with the new trees. So, it would just be somewhere else on the lot, but not as street trees. But if I could just address one point about the property line, or the point that Mr. Campbell raised, just respectfully, it's a rabbit hole that you don't need to go down. If you're talking about the tree that is closest to the driveway, there's really no dispute here that this is the Bucci's lot and the Bucci's property. I know you're aware that there's litigation between these 2 parties. There's been a dispute back and forth as to what exactly the ownership is in the right of way and in the cul-de-sac area. And I'm not going to bore you with stuff about derelict fee statute, but we think that there's really no issue here that the Bucci's own in front of their lot. So it's not, there's no boundary issue as far as a street tree goes. And even if it's placed in the right of way, that's in compliance with the rules and regulations.
Right,
okay. So Darren, given that, my feedback is this. On the one hand, I respect the Bucci's, preference to have slightly larger trees and to have those trees positioned in a way that provides some better, screening of their house from the hummingbird lane itself and potentially the abutters. And I don't necessarily feel that, that should be a problem that they plant those dogwoods there. On the other side of the fence, these street trees were not put in to suddenly become, ornamental somewhere else. I think on the Bucci's property, the intent was that they are street trees. So, I'm in favor of granting them the request to, put in the dogwoods. I would say, first of all, I don't know why we're actually hearing this item, but because that's, I think, a whole other side tangent. But if we're going to do something like this, I would say, since the Campbells were the developers of the actual subdivision, if those trees are going to be removed, I would say, why not turn them back over to the Campbells under our guidance to say, place them somewhere else as street trees and provide some further, screening for the overall, the overall subdivision, or, put them in some places that could benefit from having another tree place there, where maybe I don't remember at this point whether we allowed them to put in fewer trees, but we often will waive some of the trees on a development like this. Maybe they could fill in, the other side of the road or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, if their intent was to be street trees, if they could relocate them somewhere else to benefit the overall development, that would be great. Okay. Kate?
I think Jeff had his hand up. Jeff, did you have your hand up?
Jeff, didn't see it.
Yes, so a couple of things. So the request before you is from the owner of Lot 2 to essentially remove existing street trees and replace them with street trees of a like or better quality. I just want to be clear, when you say applicant, you don't mean I want to make clear the reference. You're not talking about the applicant to the original subdivision. You're talking about the person making the request tonight.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
The request or. All right, Dylan, anything else on that one?
That's it.
All right, Kate, any comments, questions?
What kind of trees are the ones that are in there already?
I think they mentioned they were dogwood.
So
No, he wants to plant dogwoods.
Right.
So Ms. Hollister, the trees that are there now are dogwoods, but they're not compliant with the regulations because they're undersized caliper. They don't meet the 2.5 caliper size, which is a requirement. And they've been planted for 2 years and they still don't meet it. So the new trees are also dogwoods, but they are a size sufficient to be compliant with the regulations. And in response to Mr. O'Connor's question, what happens to the existing trees is really secondary here. The request here is to be able to put the new compliant trees in the proposed location.
Right. Yeah. And I said I don't have an issue with that.
Okay.
Right. So we're trying to, yeah. Okay. Kate, anything else? Any questions? Further questions?
I mean, caliper, because it says here it's going to replace some ones of equal caliper, maybe larger, maybe not. So caliper, that's your fight, not mine. I was going to say if it's already a dogwood, the one that's in front of the house, if you want 3 more or 2 more, why couldn't you have them along with the one that's there? But, question is it on his property or is it in the right of way? If it's on his property, he has the right to take it out. The one that I was going to say, why not keep, was the one that happens to be inside the fence. So I don't know the purpose of that area. If it's just access to somewhere else, why not keep the tree? Just because the plan says 3 trees doesn't mean you can't have 4 or 5. I don't see any reason to get rid of that one.
The one that's inside the fence, Kate?
Yeah. It all depends on what's the purpose of that area. It is a residential neighborhood, so it's going to grow and create shade.
So the tree that is in the fenced area is actually impeding use of the property, because that is an area that's used to access the back of the Bucci's property. But
it's wide enough for a big truck to get through. I don't see how it's impeding it.
Well, the other issue with that tree, it's kind of it's an unusual situation. It's almost like a tree in a zoo right now because it's between 2 fences. And there's a question as to whether it's proximate enough to the exterior of the street line to constitute a street tree. So you'd actually be relocating it to be in a better location as a street tree.
No, I think that's a matter of opinion, I think, there too. So,
Well, there's a 10 to 20 foot designation in the rules and regulations.
all right.
I mean, if it qualifies as a street tree, I say keep it. If it doesn't qualify it as a street tree and it's on his property, then he has the right to do with it as he wants.
But I mean, I think just looking at that tree, Kate, I mean, I understand where you're going with this, but if you look at where that tree is planted, that tree doesn't look like it's going to be long for the world based on where it's planted, how it's being maintained, and the nature of the use of what that section of the parcel is being used for. So, I mean, look, I'm with you on let's try to preserve all, the 3 trees that exist in some form or fashion, and then let's let the Bucci's install 3 more trees because, hey, why not have more trees? I just think at least 2 of these trees that I see right now are in a position where, they're not going to lead full, happy tree lives.
All right. Good point, Dylan. All right. Bob, anything to add here? I mean,
I think Pandora's box open and I'm going to step in. So, 1, I guess I'm not real happy with what I see as the proposed placement versus where they were. I think the original plan had, and we typically have street trees placed kind of equidistant, trying to set up a character. And this just appears to me to be a relocation of the trees to be more beneficial to the Bucci's and shade the front of their property. So I'm not sure this is an equitable redistribution of the street trees. Now, I have a lot of questions now that we open Pandora's box about that gate, and I want to understand why that gate is there. Is this an additional curb cut? That is an industrial size gate. It appears that is for vehicular traffic, and it's not in close proximity to the existing curb cut that was granted for the driveway. So I think there's a lot of question with respect to that. Also, what I'd like to understand, we now see a disturbed area there. What is the plan for that area? These parcels came under a lot of scrutiny, if you recall, in the 11th hour because of impervious surface and because of our stormwater management bylaw. So I think this is opening that questioning up for me. So I'd really want to have the attorney address what's the function of that gate, why it's placed there, and what's going on with that disturbed area. Is there a plan to pave that in some fashion? It certainly has had the grass removed, and I want to understand why that grass was removed.
I don't think that there's any plan to pave that area. It's for access to the rear of the property. There are propane tanks in the back that need to be serviced. That's one of the issues for getting back there. But, frankly, the Bucci's are permitted to access the back portion of their property. And if you take a look at the plan, you can see this is really coming off the spur of the hammerhead, which is how you access that. And actually the way, and I think this has something to do with how the original street tree plan was originally developed. You can see you have a cul-de-sac that was originally proposed. And the entirety of the cul-de-sac is a right-of-way area. And not to get too particular into easements and things like that, but that entire area can be used for access to the Bucci's lot to pass and repass over that. But clearly it wasn't all paved. So you have a grassy area of a portion of what was the original cul-de-sac. But in terms of your question, Mr. Schaefer, about the gate is to allow access into the rear of the property there.
I guess I want to understand.
For what purpose, though?
I understand the purpose of getting to the propane tanks. I'll accept that. But I want to understand why the grass was removed.
I'll answer. I see Mr. Morissette has his hand up, so I don't know if he wants to.
Opine.
I would recommend that the board confine their questions to the specific request before them relative to street trees. I don't think this is an appropriate agenda item to discuss potential uses on a lot. The request relates to street trees, and if I'm not mistaken, the trees must be planted within 20 feet of the edge of the right of way. So that, okay, I think is the scope. There's a certain number that was already approved by the board in certain locations. And I think if to the degree that the board can focus in on the issues of the street trees and the specific request before you, I think that would be ideal for everyone.
So I guess I would request that the applicant kind of repropose the location of these trees. As I say, they seem to be clustered right in front of the property. They're not, I think, serving what is our traditional use of street trees to kind of create a character of shade tree along the distance of road.
Well, I would say to that they're the way they are spaced out, I believe they're equidistant on the plan here. There is another street tree, if you're looking at the plan, to the right of the driveway that is further down toward Lawson. You can see it. It's sort of under the bird of Hummingbird Lane, and the Bucci's are obviously not the developer of the subdivision, so they can only request a relocation on their own lot for the trees that are on their lot. So they're not proposing a diminishment of the number of street trees, and it's actually an improvement because they're providing compliant trees, whereas the existing street trees are not compliant with the regulations. And I have photos I'd be happy to share that show the caliper size, but they're not part of your packet right now.
All right. Are these two trees where it says lot 2, there's a green dot right above that, those two other dots that are not highlighted, are those street trees that are existing right now?
Are you referring to the yellow dots?
No. Well, there's a yellow dot, and then there's two others that are not yellow. Are those street trees?
I think that the black dots are all street trees.
Right.
3 of those have been highlighted.
All right. So then the red trees, I think, would be somewhat symmetrical if you add those other 2 in there. So I don't have a big issue with the relocation of them.
Yeah, that's right. So if you come down with the 2 black dots, then the 3 orange across the front of lot 2.
All right.
But again, we get back into what the issue that the only issue I have with this is that the Bucci's are not suggesting where they're going to replant the existing trees. And I do think it would be better to keep those as street trees and not have those become ornamental trees in the Bucci's property.
If you want to place them elsewhere as street trees, I don't think there's any objection to that.
Well, what's the Campbell's opinion on that? Bill, what is your opinion on that?
I would say that Dan is obviously an attorney and they're very linguist, and he does not believe there would be an objection to that, but that doesn't mean that there is not an objection to that. So, I mean, I think that that's the most reasonable thing, as long as they're replanted within, the street trees, we're okay with that.
All right. Even Dylan, are you suggesting even if it's not on the Bucci's property, somewhere else on the street throughout Hummingbird Lane?
Right. Yes. Someplace that would make sense for the overall development would be ideal.
And when I said I don't think there'd be an objection to that, I was referring to the Bucci's, not to anybody else. I would just request that obviously we wouldn't want those placed in a location that's going to impede the use, like the 2 trees you've seen already. That's
right.
All.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with putting the new proposed 3 trees where they've proposed. To Dylan's point, if the Bucci's would agree to take the existing ones and use them throughout Hummingbird Lane as street trees, I think that would benefit everyone. I think that would be a benefit to the overall community.
Right, and that's what I thought, that's what I was saying. I don't think there's any objection to that on the part of the Bucci's.
All right, so then one final thing, Jeff, is obviously the planting of these new trees would be subject to, was it a 1 year kind of, 1 year life kind of guarantee? So the Bucci's, if they put in these new trees, would be responsible for making sure that they last for at least that 1 year, as any street tree would.
I believe that is a typical requirement, and the requester can correct me if I'm wrong, but these days trees of such quality, they normally come with some sort of warranty, typically for a year. So I'm not sure if that's something they're amenable to. The applicant was required to maintain it for a year, so I'm assuming that these folks would be willing to do the same for the new trees that they install.
Right. Okay.
But if they're going to relocate the 3 that they're removing, and they do have a lot of frontage on the road, no, it can't be a hack job where some guy just comes in and does a half crappy job, I can't say the word, of digging them up and destroying the roots so that when you plant them, they have no chance of survival. That, it has to be done properly.
Yeah, I mean, I think, is the board in agreement that we would be fine with the 3 new trees where they're proposed? And it would be ideal to have the 3 existing trees that the Bucci's would like to have moved, used as street trees throughout Hummingbird Lane.
I'm still trying to understand what I understand they're under caliper from the attorney. I'm trying to understand what I understand there's 1 tree inside of a gated area.
Bob, again, I think we've got to stay just within the trees, and
I'm just trying to understand I thought there was only 1 tree that was obstructing. Are all 3 trees obstructing somehow?
And so I think, it's hard.
I think 2 of them are.
Okay.
The one in front of the house is obstructing because it's too close to the 3 he wants to put in. Then there's the one that's outside the fence because he put the fence right next to it. Then there's the one that's inside the fence. I don't know which came first, the fence or the tree.
Okay.
So,
all right, I got you.
So, and I guess we can go back to the attorney. I guess, can you bring that proposal back and see if that's amenable to the Bucci's?
The proposal to relocate the existing street trees?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is acceptable to the Bucci's elsewhere on Hummingbird, just with the caveat that it not impede the use like the 2 trees we're talking about right now.
Right, okay.
And Darren, it's Bill Campbell again, and or Dan. The only thing we would ask is obviously to be communicated with. Obviously, some may or may not be aware, but as you're looking at where it says lot 3, there's a black dot, 2 inches up to the right and an inch down to the right. That area has irrigation lines running through it. And then opposite of that, as you're coming up Hummingbird Lane on the right-hand side, you would eventually enter our driveway. The grassed area over there has landscaping lines through it, so.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you guys can come to an agreement on the replacement of those existing trees and the Bucci's can add the new proposed trees, I think that would be a win for the development.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a clarifying question of the attorney? Is it your position that the Bucci's are willing to relocate the existing street trees somewhere on the Bucci's property so long as it doesn't interfere with any of their utilities or other structures? Is that the case?
Yeah, that is my understanding. And as I'm looking at this plan, I mean, I think it would likely be to the right of the Bucci's driveway along Hummingbird somewhere.
I think that would be,
Yeah.
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, that would sort of make sense to me as well. But I guess, and I can't even believe I'm going to say this. Darren, should we ask that they come back before us with a plan that both sides agree to the placement of these trees? Look, if we don't, we're just going to have them back here again because something's going to happen.
Well, could I just say that if you're going to request that the Campbells and the Bucci's agree on the placement of the trees, I think you can probably discern from the opposition letter that you got that we're never going to get to that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Dylan, I don't think. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I guess what I would ask back to the attorney, I guess your name is Dan. I'm sorry, I don't remember your last name, so I'll just call you Dan. But I guess my concern is your client will place these trees and may not take due care, and then we're going to be hearing from the Campbells that you damaged some irrigation lines or whatever. So you're putting us in a difficult position. I agree with you that getting these two sides to agree on placement of the trees could be difficult, but this is now, I don't even know, the fifth or sixth post-development item that we're now hearing between these parties.
Right.
Right. So, which is why we were just trying to simplify this and just focusing on a replacement instead of, now you have 6 street trees with what you're contemplating instead of the 3. And I understand and know where you're going with not wanting to waste the trees as street trees, but there's actually no difference in the number of street trees. It's just 3 for 3. And technically these trees are Bucci property because they're on lot 2, the 3 trees. But again, I don't think they would have an issue with placing them somewhere else along the lane, and it would be nowhere near the irrigation lines. So that's why I recommended to the right of the driveway, because the Campbell's irrigation line, as I understand it, is in front of their house or near their house.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think.
All right. Yeah. I mean, if you'll place them to the right of the Bucci's driveway, I suppose. Yeah, that's
as evenly spaced as possible.
Yeah.
Because one could also look at this. You want to relocate the 3 street trees, and the Bucci's want to put in their own 3 trees independent of the street trees is another way of looking at it.
Yep.
So,
right. Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, you get 6 trees instead of 3. So I think that's a win.
Right. It is a win. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. I think
more trees are always better.
Win-win. Yeah, it should be a win-win. So hopefully everybody will view it that way.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, Dylan, do you still want to ask them to come back, even though now they're to the right? Okay. Good.
No.
So, all right, good. I think.
As long as there's nothing that they're going to impede on in that area, I don't think the water line goes up there or anything.
Just a final note that, the Bucci's did reach out, and I think Jeff can verify this. They did reach out in this process to try to work with the board and do this the right way. And I don't think I know they won't have any issue doing that with respect to planting the other trees.
Okay, great. That's great. Jeff, do you need anything? Is everybody in agreement with that? Dylan, Kate, Bob?
Yes.
Yep.
So just to clarify, the 3 orange trees I get, the 3 yellow to be relocated somewhere on lot 2 such that they can qualify as street trees. And the 1 year applies, the 1 year maintenance, does that apply to simply the new trees?
All 6.
I mean,
preferably all 6.
You have to apply it to the other 3, because otherwise, like I said, you get a hack who comes in and just uproots them and doesn't care.
Well, I mean, Kate, presumably they're going to use the same company to install all these trees, right? So they're going to want the 3 dogwoods in front of their house done correctly. So presumably,
Yeah.
it just feels difficult to me because now we're asking them to warranty 3 trees that have already been in the ground for 2 years that are now being transplanted for a year, and they don't have the backing of the nursery or whatever that they're buying them from. So that is, in my opinion, that's slightly unfair.
Yeah, I would say the 3 trees, Jeff, subject to the 1-year street tree maintenance, and then the 3 that are moved, best effort.
Good faith effort.
Good faith effort to maintain them as street trees.
Yes. Because,
Okay.
you know, they're not root balled like the other, a new tree is. So they need more TLC.
Right. And, as Dylan pointed out, these are going to be in front of the Bucci's house. I would think that they'd want to maintain them.
Right.
Okay.
So
Jeff, do you need any kind of motion on this, or?
Yes, I need some kind of motion, and then staff would memorialize the board's discussion tonight in writing.
All right.
I move that we authorize the Bucci's to transplant the 3 existing trees shown on the plan in yellow to between the right of the driveway and that rightmost tree, and that they can then plant 3 dogwoods on where the red dots are, in the vicinity of the red dots.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. All right, that brings us to item F under general business, our annual board reorganization and appointments. So the first thing we typically do is entertain motions for a chair. By the way, it's been fun serving as chair, but happy to give someone else a chance to enjoy it
Your
as
2
well.
years are up.
That's right.
You've done a great job, Darren.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Kate. So yeah, I've reached my term limit. I don't want to get in trouble for exceeding the term limit, so happy to give someone else a chance as well. So
I'd like to nominate Dylan.
Nominate Dylan O'Connor as chair.
I'll second that.
all right, there's a motion and a second to nominate Dylan as chair. Is there any other nominations?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'll go to the vote. All those in favor of voting Dylan in as the chair of the board, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Do you vote for yourself? I guess aye.
All right. Pete?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye. All right, the second item would be to name a nominee for the vice chair, and I actually would like to make that nomination. I would nominate nominate Mike as the vice chair.
I'll second that. Because he had expressed interest in it last year, and I believe in sharing the fun. So,
Exactly. All right, good.
Thank you.
Any other nominations? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of naming Mike as the vice chair, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Thank you.
I
So
say aye.
isn't the unofficial role of the vice chair is to make all of the motions?
Come on, Kate, you're going to make the motions anyway. You can't help yourself.
No, except the hard ones. I'm happy to let somebody else do the hard ones.
No, I'm good. All right, good. Jeff, do we also have to talk about appointments as well at this meeting?
That's after
Yes,
town
Mr.
meeting.
Chair. So I think I threw in a portion of the minutes from last year's meeting to give you an idea of some of the positions that the board routinely fills. So probably NIMCOG is definitely one of those. Pedestrian Safety Committee, we have the Stormwater, I think, Review Committee to hear appeals relative to stormwater. Trying to remember what else.
CPC.
There's the pedestrian safety.
Yeah.
CPC.
CPC, yep.
Yep. So Jeff, do all of these appointments, do they expire at the end of June?
So I think many of them do tend to expire at the end of June, but nothing prevents you folks. If someone wants to jockey around or change positions, or for a variety of reasons no longer wants to serve, you can do that. If you want to delay until you're closer to June 30th, you may do so also, so long as everyone in those roles currently are willing to maintain them until at least the end of June.
Just because I'm looking at our planning board regs, and it says we do the committee stuff after town meeting. So, but I'm happy to do it now if everybody else wants to. And after town meeting would be closer to the end of the fiscal year. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, doesn't matter to me.
We're here now.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, so then, all right, well, so, all right, I'll go first. I'm on NIMCOG now, been on it for a number of years. Happy to continue unless someone else would like to do a turn at NIMCOG, which is once a month on Wednesday evenings typically, usually in Lowell, but now by Zoom, for the time being.
Second, third, or fourth Wednesday.
It's usually the same week as, I think, our second planning board meeting. Actually, no, yeah. It's the same week as our second planning board meeting.
Third Wednesday typically.
Yeah.
Just curious.
So, like I said, happy to do it again unless someone else would like to do it.
If you're happy to do it, then I'd say keep going.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Is that a motion?
I move to, go ahead, Kate.
Go ahead, Mike. I said you should be doing all the motions.
I move that, I'm going to read the last motion here. What do they read? You'll see. To reappoint Weiss as representative to NIMCOG.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye.
I guess I'll go second. I've been on the CPC and the stormwater. Well, the stormwater panel has only been for the last, 6 or 8 months. CPC I've been on, I think, 2 years. Same exact position as Darren. I'm fine continuing on, or if somebody would like to be on one of these committees or panels, I'm certainly happy to share the good fortune.
Just out of curiosity, has stormwater, has there been an issue?
No, we had one initial kickoff meeting to sort of define and discuss the process, and there's been no
appeals.
There's been no appeals as of yet, so we haven't had to convene to discuss any of them. So, yeah. or actually, I should say, if there have been appeals, I guess they've been sort of handled without the need for the panel to review them.
So there has been an appeal going before the select board, so that hasn't involved the panel?
I've not received a meeting invitation.
It's been brought up at the last 1 or 2 select board meetings.
I know I would get an email. I'm quite sure that town engineering would have roped me in if the panel was convening.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the role of the panel versus why they went to the select board.
Maybe they're arguing the process, Bob, instead of the actual.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, the panels charter is really just if a resident feels that the stormwater fee being levied on their parcel is unfair, it's the panel's discretion to hear that and then, render a decision. So yeah, I mean, I guess the next point, maybe I'm not familiar with what the appeal is that's in front of the select board right now, so.
Okay. Gotcha. Is anyone else interested in the roles Dylan has at CPC and stormwater?
I mean, I'm not really doing much other than zoning bylaws right now. So, I mean, I'm willing to step in with CPC if you'd like.
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, it's, that one is very heavy through the winter months. Usually the process kicks up around November. They start to meet. And then there's a bunch of activity between usually like January and March. And then it kind of tapers off a little bit through the summer. So
I'm fairly well aware of that, given my history with CPS.
Oh, got it. I'm sorry about that.
All right.
It's a good reminder for the audience.
I was the citizen chair of the proposing committee.
There you go. Well, then I'll make a motion then I'll make a motion to appoint Bob Schaffer as the representative to the CPC.
Second.
All right, great. All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I say aye.
Congrats, Bob.
I move then to nominate Dylan O'Connor to the stormwater panel. We haven't voted on that yet.
Yeah, second. So all those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say aye. All right, Kate, what do you?
I'm happy to be on the pedestrian safety committee again. I mean, I'm just got my feet wet again, so it seems silly to have somebody else get brought up to speed.
Okay.
I move we reappoint Kate to the pedestrian safety committee.
Second.
All right, motion a second. All those in favor, Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye.
And this is not an appointment, but I talked with Mike recently about our attempt to try and update our subdivision rules and regulations. And so I offered to help him and Mike Green out if they're both still willing to work on it. Mike Bonifant said he was.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, Jeff, you said that changes the dynamic since it's two board members. We would have to possibly post meetings, but do they have to be public?
So if you have two members, it likely would be construed as a subcommittee, and subcommittees would have to be posted, and as such, I believe they would have to take place in, publicly accessible settings.
Fashion, but it could be by Zoom and not by go-to meeting or whatever.
I believe so, but it may have to be available for the public consumption.
Okay.
And subject to minutes and such, all the open meeting law requirements.
The minutes will be, we met, we discussed this, we adjourned. How's that? But yeah, so it'd be good. That way Mike and I can prod one another and say, hey, let's do something.
That's good.
Thank you.
That also reminded me of as we dealt with going through the details of the drive-through restaurant, Dylan and I certainly noted a lot of areas elsewhere in the bylaws, the zoning bylaws, that could just use some tweaking, not substantially altering the bylaws, but making them more efficient. As we said, there's an inconsistency in terms of how we deal with drive-through window review in general. I did note, Dylan made a very good, just one example is where we talk about having in-depth review and soliciting comment from police, fire, and health. I was shocked to find out that's really not in the bylaw now. And so we've put it in the drive-through window, but that's really not where it belongs. It really belongs elsewhere in either the MPC or in the site plan review. So I think the zoning bylaws also could use some updating and tweaking.
Are you guys keeping track of your thoughts on that so that?
Yep, we have some of those because we have a really good input document from last Thursday night, and we had to tweak it because we had to stay within the scopes and bounds of the article. We couldn't go outside of that.
All right, good.
So then that could be a good starting point for the next round of bylaw changes.
Well, one item, just for example, is there's not a general noise ordinance. The only place I can find reference to noise in our zoning bylaw is actually under major commercial projects. So, one idea that Bob and I were talking about is would it make sense to just have a general noise ordinance added to the overall bylaws?
And one that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of updates that can be made there.
Yep.
No doubt. All right, good. All right, Jeff, I think we're all set, right? We have all the appointments covered?
I think so.
All right, perfect. And I didn't see minutes. The next item is minutes, but I didn't see them in the packet.
Right, so that is on me. Our exemplary minutes taker did provide them as we were wrapping up the packet, but due to a variety of issues, I was unable to send them out, but she did provide them, so we can put them in either your next meeting packet or the June 7th meeting packet. It will be up to the chair.
All right.
The new chair.
Awesome responsibility. I can't wait.
All right, good. Yeah, good stuff. Looking forward to it. So, all right, good. All right, any other issues? Any other items? No. So see if
I didn't know if we wanted that. The correspondence was an interesting piece of correspondence, but I was open to suggestions about how we might leverage that as a planning board. It seemed to be more appropriate for the select board in terms of the anti-litter initiative.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right.
Did they get a copy of it? Do you know?
I do not know.
All right.
We can remedy that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Good. All right, seeing no new information, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All right, motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Mike?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
All right, I say aye.
Congratulations on the end of your term.
Nice job, Dean.
No, it's another couple of years on the planning board though, so it's all good.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Lots of fun, huh, Sarah?
And
What's that?
Sarah, lots of fun. She's still with us.
Yeah, she's awake.
Hope there's no resignation on Jeff's desk tomorrow.
Maybe.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Yep.